have become is somebody who appears to be some kind of bum-ass, strung-out drug addict. I am a McDermott, and the name means son of Diarmuid, an ancient Irish king. The biblical times are upon us, and I teeter and totter the tightrope, making black metal music.
Listening to There Is No God. Podcast.
Hello and welcome to this new episode of the show, the Vault of Doom podcast. I am Mickey Gemini, your host, and I want to introduce myself a little bit here as I'm 4 seasons into the show, have a need to introduce myself. I am reintroducing myself to you, and that's gonna be exactly what this is, a reintroduction, and I pretty much don't want to do this reintroduction, but I just definitely have to. Let me go off of as much time as I'm allotted to do so without reading the thing that I've prepared. Podcast is going to have some pretty philosophical connotations to it, and it's totally, the thing about it is, it's totally great that I was able to sit and have the moment of just putting down a rough draft without revising it, and no need to proofread either, as I used some of the speech-to-text tools provided by Google on my Google keyboard on my Gboard that has to be not spell corrected. I would literally be wasting a shitload of time trying to sit there and spell correct something that has a few paragraphs in it in text-to-speech service provided by Google that has to literally just remain the way that it is, and then I have to go off of common sense and off the top of my head, off of kind of transcribing it after that. So I'm definitely not going to go into that. What I will say is that this episode reveals a shitload about me. I am all too reluctant to do it. Very leery about doing it. But there's a lot of stuff in there that should help clear the stuff out. Even if it's just because I said it. Even if it's just because it's stuff that I said. That would have helped clear out some confusion in my own head. Clear out some of the fog and cloudiness in my own head. That as a basis for literally removing the part of me that needs to focus on removing stuff and just go on and move on with and live my life. I'm not going to say that I'm going to enjoy it, but all of it, but I will enjoy it a lot better knowing that I can move on a little bit, living my life. To have the ideas that came upon me to start the writing process for the script of this episode. Alright, hold on, let me back up a second. I think I just forgot what I just said. Let me slow down a little bit here. To have the thoughts that came to me to write the stuff down prior to writing the stuff down is the basis of what I've been cultivating for this show recently. Back in the first season. I'm in season 4 right now. So I'm thinking, as of, just regular algorithms, I'm thinking in the sense of just how a regular algorithm works. And that's another thing that's getting in the way of me and enjoying my life, let alone living it. I can't live my life when I'm sitting around crunching numbers and thinking about algorithms when everybody's using algorithms and using AI. And that's an example of me doing so is taking away from training my threads algorithm, the threads from Instagram, to limiting it to just one time. I wrote black metal like 100 times, and then it just didn't have like the same effect on me on my profile as if I do that regularly, like once a week or something, or twice a week or something like that. But the ideas coming to me prior to doing this is the basis of how I started back in season 1, where I have the open space to work with and like just a giant empty head. And that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. I can't go to a therapist for this kind of work. I can't. Also, likewise, I can't essentially use this platform for that as well. For that either. So the thoughts that came to me while writing it, before I incurred some pretty serious problems, because I started off with, everything perfectly. And then in the actual process of writing the script for this episode, I go and I handle realizing I bit off more than I can chew and setting myself up for more than I was ready for. And then as fine with that as I am, this kind of work being done for free should be known is an extremely hazardous scenario for everyone involved and everyone in the surrounding areas, as its unpredictability can prove extremely detrimental for all of the people involved. Let me rephrase that. Doing stuff for free when you are good at it is not only the mark of a fool, and it's not only sheer folly, it can prove to be quite dangerous, as I've seen here throughout me saying it myself. I speak for myself as I've seen it here throughout the course of time on this little adventure of mine that I have been on, and setting up the context into the new stages and phases of my life here, moving on with my life and living my life. I mentioned a few things in this episode about some trauma, overcoming trauma, and one of the things that I hope that not only you can appreciate about me as the host of the show and the show itself is that not only am I doing these episodes as uncut as possible with the minimal editing, even though that leaves me to a state of, well, might as well not even bother editing at all, considering the large amount of information packed in there. But I don't expect any gratitude or support on the levels of the quality that I'm providing. It simply is to say that the quantity of things that I provide requires support. It requires support that I'm able to let my audience know, whoever they may be, even if it's just myself, even if it's just to remind myself later, for something to reflect on later, that I know who is my support system and my support network. The other thing that you should appreciate, not only about the uncut stuff and that being the only point, the only key point that I'm making, is that I run with the punches and I roll with it if I forget something, and I experience very little turbulence. So when the feedback does start coming in, as I'm getting some subscribers, I'm growing in subscribers. I have 7 on my recent black metal project. I have 8 here on this show. Sorry, I have actually 13 on this show, and 8 on my official Mickey Gemini YouTube channel. So the fan base is slowly growing, or so it seems, so it may appear. The feedback not coming in is so strange. I mentioned something about that in this episode as well. I've got to say that when it does, be warned that if any negative feedback comes in, I take these things into consideration, require them. The negative stuff, it's a requirement for me personally, and that's not much of a warning, or it doesn't sound like it, but it just might not be a warning, I guess. Might be something else, I don't know. But there's one hell of an episode here for you guys as a reintroduction. Me reintroducing myself as I feel that urge to do so, and also, you know, I'm not freaked out at all by having these ideas, putting them into the recordings, publishing the recordings, and then seeing other podcasters or listening to other podcasters doing the same exact thing. It doesn't freak me out. So if I have to, you know, do some more work for free, I'm totally open for that. It's just a matter of like free trials being a concept that should be easily understood, that it's a free trial. That's where I'm at now with things. As my free trial of the previous amount of work, the ways that I've been doing this work so far is over with. And unfortunately, this whole fucking thing is so chaotic, out of control. I'm also getting, quite honestly, the vibe that everybody's just gonna let this whole fucking thing run its course, and just kind of like, it's just like, whatever, to hell with it. Nobody cares, and all that shit. but it's quite an interestingly identical metaphor for the country I'm living in right now. And though I am very ashamed of my country and do not have any patriotic bone in my body, so explicitly stating that being a great entrance and segue into more and other future topics of conversation. The episode tells you a little bit about my history, my childhood, my adult years, some of the troublemaking. I literally threw all of the troublemaking in like one sentence. Literally one sentence with commas added in. And some of the work that I've done, like when I started this show, some of the books that I've written. Didn't mention anything about the musical endeavors aside from being heavily into the live performance community. But the other stuff that I could say here in the introduction would literally deem the whole thing irrelevant. So get started on this episode and please submit your feedback as well as hear me out when I say your support is appreciated. So wanting you to know where my cash tag is something I'm probably not even going to be saying on every episode anymore, but I probably should, and that's because it's on the show notes where there's the cash tag itself, and then a direct link to sending me money to my Cash App is on the top of my an X profile with like 300 something followers, by the way, mind you. So with me looking into not having an audience and literally broadcasting to a vacuum, I love that metaphor so much. I heard it on a podcast the other day, and it's super identical to what the fuck is going on here. But I mentioned it twice in the episode, so that's about the only thing I'm really nervous about is just, like the guy didn't coin the phrase broadcasting to a vacuum, but I heard it there first, and the guy's got a podcast review with 3 parts, 3 minutes total, on my official Mickey Gemini page. So without further ado, so that should be sufficient. So without further ado, let's get into episode 39 of the Vault of Doom podcast with me, Mickey Gemini, reintroducing myself so we can get ready for International Podcast Day, as it is a week before International Podcast Day. This moment that I'm doing the recording. And having started to get off topic there a little bit, I'm just itching to pick up my guitar again and start doing more relentless, vigorous, monotonous, never-ending finger exercises. So a little self-promotion before you get started into the show is you could check out the finger exercises shorts trilogy that I have out right now. There's going to be plenty more guitar hacks, finger exercises, videos, shorts, 1 minute long each. You could spare a minute to watch my shorts. Do you see how I sound right now? It sounds like literally fiendish. Can't stand it, but that is an accurate depiction of what the state of the world is in right now with their complete, total digital addiction. I don't know exactly how I'm feeding into that, considering I'm getting no fucking feedback from anybody, but it sure is a fucking requirement. I am Mickey Gemini. This is the Vault of Doom podcast, episode 39. Let's go. Beep, boop, bop. Beep, beep, beep. Just waiting until I'm ready to push the stop button. I'm not ready. I'm not ready to push the stop button yet. It's not, the time is not now. The time is some other time other than now. There's a different time other than now. Anyway, I'm pushing stop because I'm just going to do more self-promoting, talk about more projects. Enjoy the fucking show, motherfuckers. It's not my catchphrase. Let it roar is not my catchphrase anymore either. Shut up and metal is my new catchphrase, I think. But there's still another one. Anyway, that's good enough for now. Shut up and metal.
Hello and welcome to the show, episode 39 of the Vault of Doom podcast. My name is Mickey Gemini. I've got to reintroduce myself 4 seasons into the show, and I'm just leaking ideas for episodes left and right. I mean, if I made a podcast about every idea that crossed my mind, I would have 10 episodes per day, like an hour in length each. And that's a point where you're gonna hear that from me, basically a bum with no fucking support system, basically, and not having any fucking way of combating that, really. But if you want legit podcasts, you should go find one with a sponsor like BetterHelp and Blue Chew and all the other indie merch store and all the other legit sponsors. But it's quite unfortunate that I sit on my throne right now listening to the crickets. You could probably hear the crickets in the background, some faint traffic in the background, etc., etc. And doing my podcast and doing my show, building the thing up from the ground up, even though I started the thing 11 years ago. I have mentioned that a few times now as well. And you'll get to hear it again, as I've written that in the words that I've prepared for this episode. And the others that are doing the same thing, building the ground up, all of us, I have to aim a bit of a tilt of the hat to them, a tip of the hat to them for doing the same thing I'm doing, building their show from the ground up and doing the thing without sponsors and just rattling off stuff that they have on their mind. And maybe they have a specific premise, maybe they don't. The specific premise about mine is pretty evident upon listening to the theme song. It's like a 20-second theme song that this far into the show I've prepared a pretty lengthy script, per se. Today, I just wrote it today. I didn't proofread it or anything, as I used a little bit of the artificially intelligent technology such as Google Google text to speech, and that's considered AI. So again, all the ideas that crossed my mind in order to do everything correctly is far too abundant to keep up with. So I mean, I'm not sure why I would give something up that I've been doing for this long. I'm not sure why I would do anything other than just continuing to venture on and traverse forward into the unknown, basically, and in ways like this, where I'm reintroducing myself to you in a sense of, let me tell you a little bit about my history, and also let me do so with the basic freestyles kind of format of stuff that I did not prepare. I have a very extensive history in the black metal, punk rock, nu metal music genre scenes that were coupled with my daily skateboard routines. I vaguely brushed over a few of these things too, so even just having to lag this much into it is going to be kind of making this episode more lackluster than I would like it. So if you would like to really indulge in something that I would consider more of a worthy offering, that something that I have to provide to others, then listen to my music. And that's a more accurate way of kind of hearing where I'm at with stuff, and just doing just how I'm doing with stuff, how I'm doing with things, and then making the music, promoting it myself, sending it to promoters, doing all the work all the while for literally just the most inconceivable reasons. At least today, in this day and age, it's inconceivable that one would pursue such endeavors. Art for art's sake, music for music's sake, or kind of communicating a lot of the very locked away kind of depths of the human psyche, so to speak. And I literally just brush it off like it's nothing. To me, it's nothing. And I just go, tally up all of it and just kind of add it up, and at the end of the day, tackle it, and tackle everything in its own way and all that stuff. But it is a pretty big deal that this isn't people don't do this right now in a way that's broadcasted. People do this right now in the revolution will not be televised way. And unfortunately, even the revolution will not be televised format is in and of itself a trending topic. It's investigative journalism. It's independent publishing. It's very popularized. It's just you're basically not allowed to reach the masses. An isolated incident, so to speak. This is not a foreign concept to me. I'm very familiarized with these things. I, unfortunately, am all too willing to teach and show people and kind of lend my time, energy, money, efforts, creativity, imagination, what have you, when you're willing to lend anything that's possible. And it sort of prevents me from really having any kind of ego stroking, if you will, when ultimately that's what it comes down to. That is a requirement from such hard work. I can't imagine any architect that's designed any of the buildings in major metropolitan areas that don't have a major ego stroking. And that's definitely neither here nor there. That's definitely right here and right now. That currently what's on my mind is a lot of the ego stuff while I'm prepared a reintroduction of myself. So I'll try to tread as lightly as possible. I can't say things like you won't even know I'm here, as I'm hosting a podcast right now. But I can certainly say that I'll try to be as gentle as possible. It's very, very much a great opportunity to be able to communicate certain things such as that, which I have just said. But it's also an excellent opportunity that I am very grateful for having, to have the parameters set up for all this, to do this the way that I do it. And I don't really owe myself too much I don't really owe myself too much of a vehemently needing to be grateful for it, as it's sort of a joint effort here. It's half of the work is really by my own bare hands, and I do a lot of the footwork myself. So it's really not a requirement that I be grateful, but it is encouraged that an attitude of gratitude sort of benefits one in certain ways. And so what I'm doing is this, and what I'm going to ask you to do, other than hear me out when I say thank you for being here and joining me on this show, and thank you for listening. So hear me out when I say that, okay? Process that for a second. I know that sometimes people think I'm ungrateful, so I have to take that detour for a second, unfortunately. And also, let me know what you think of... This is a huge requirement. I'm like literally not going to be able to do this the same way for much longer without you guys providing your feedback and letting me know in the comments. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Utilize the technology that mankind has been bestowed with here in the age of information. And that is really all the time that I have for basically what is the second reintroduction as I mosey my way on over to basically suppressing doing a third introduction before getting into an episode about a reintroduction about myself. And I honestly couldn't possibly understand why anybody would ever expect any feedback from this at all whatsoever, considering what it really appears to be. But let's get the quick promo out of the way, as I have a couple minutes to do some of that. The new black metal project of mine that just was debuted July 1st of 2024 has now been running strong, going strong. I've been hitting the studio session here in whatever name you want to call this place, the Vault of Doom, the Lion's Den. I just seem to be creating a new nickname every time that I fucking go and blink. I can literally blink and the fucking goddamn laundry list of new names that I have for my fucking my dwelling is signing up for its own new rightful home in the fucking trash, where I'm gonna throw all the fucking shit, because this is just the same, as much of an insult as somebody that gives you a fucking some kind of a surname or nomenclature when, like, you have a name, like you have a clearly defined name, or you have a nickname, you have a clearly defined nickname, and people call you this name and people call you this nickname, and I prefer to be referred to by these names. And when you stray from that, that's a direct insult. And you know, when somebody doesn't realize that till later, it's a pretty sticky situation. It's something that's gonna have to just sort of quell itself naturally, from my standpoint, as I don't understand what the fuck I could possibly do to get involved in such an ordeal. But if you enjoy this and you support this, it's an excellent source of you finding this show through hashtags, through tagging, through the time that I took to make the template, and don't need to take the time anymore doing hashtags because I've already done all the hashtags, so I can copy and paste them. Tagging may be a little bit different, not sure. But it's just a sheer laziness of myself not seeking out the service that auto generates the tagging of my content for me. Anyway, the fucking project's called Pitiful Spawn. It was released July 1st. I mentioned that.
This is
that's
the
where you can go
the
check that on
body.
YouTube. Let's get into the show right
This is
now.
the body of the show right here, the guts,
Where it still requires, yet again, just another introduction, is there's always a few things that were not added into the text used to prepare this episode. I don't add junk into my show, so you can take a mental note of that, as it should make both of us happy knowing that. The show's been going pretty strong since I said 2013, but really the show's actually been going since 2011, so I've actually been doing this for 13 years now. In that I was having extravagant new, all the things that the kids are doing now with running their show and having the new trending stuff and having the new trending interesting stuff and listening to your email and making the parents happy that they can have their role in their child producing online content and what have you. I'm so outside of that perimeter that I couldn't even begin to describe it, as it would slowly sort of suck me in. But I can say this, that all the newsletters that I get and receive on from my YouTube creators, email newsletters that say stuff about trending topic, I was doing all that myself, and it was popular. It was getting thousands of views. It was getting feedback. It was getting jokesters pretending that they were gay guys hitting on me, and all this insulting business. And of course I took things into my own hands, as I always do, and removed my Google AdSense account. So now I cannot re-enter the Google YouTube video monetization program until I've made it a whole big extravagant thing where I've cleared out my Meta ordeal as well, since clearly being Meta verified, X verified are two different things. I had to sort that out, and monetizing my YouTube videos to generate income is another thing. While I battle some technically am battling some legal issues at the moment, technically, and also am technically also battling some government cheese issues that I'm still having at the moment as well. So I've certainly got a lot going on, as my chiropractor has once said, but I just I don't have, like, I really actually don't have that much going on, because all that's actually ever been going on in my mind is really the way that it's going to be, and it's kind of just super big bummer that I have to be so masculine in my masculinity, as that can prove to be quite toxic if it's not properly cared for, just like basically everything else. But the YouTube channel monetization's on its way back. Like I said, I took matters into my own hands, removed my own ad monetization, and this fucking episode is really pissing me off how long it is. But if you sign up for maybe a road trip and you need something to do for a few hours, it's very practical and pragmatic that you can play this episode and fucking have something to do to basically just fill the space, fill the void with my voice. Because I'm a natural born voice actor and very good actor and all these other sorts of things that I might or might not believe or say, or maybe it just helps if I just say it and get it the fuck out of the way or something. I don't know. But the fucking content that I was making was super exactly identical to the YouTube creator email newsletters that I get, where it says, here's the trending topics. I was doing that myself. All kinds of interesting, extravagant ideas were recorded on my iPod Touch, published onto my YouTube. And one might even ask this, because I am going to do a lot of talking about my history, and I did do a quick disclaimer, a quick forewarning. I'm not getting anything out of this at all, aside from the fact of just getting it out of my system. That the content that was made was pretty good to be creative, making the new stuff and then publishing it, and sorry, I'm having a bit of a brain fart at the moment. And producing the content, I should have a better mind. I should have half a mind to just press pause, but it's unfortunately not how I run. I have to not do that. Either or, I have to not continue without pressing pause, and I have to not press pause. So the only thing left to do, other than those two things, is basically just continue on and staying in my headspace, staying focused here right now in my headspace on the content that was creating, what happened to the channel. As I do a lot of talking about my history in this episode, I don't do too much talking about what actually was the result of these things and what was the fate of these things and what happened to these things, as it's really not that all that important. But it's going to be just a little extra topping for you to add on in there, that I personally removed the YouTube channel without entirely, as usual, without entirely really knowing why. I just do things. It's just natural to do it. So I do it. I did it. I personally removed the channel myself, so it's no longer in existence. But that channel was like, it's like the archetype of this set of channels. This video is broadcasted under the Vault of Doom podcast YouTube channel. Vault of Doom podcast YouTube channel is branched off from the parent YouTube channel. The parent YouTube channel is Lion's Den Productions YouTube channel. How the podcast officially started under its live streaming format in 2017. But the show was basically like it was just like me sitting, hanging out with friends, doing all this cool, interesting, exclusive content, and then the official live stream stuff wasn't like the Lion's Den podcast, like, wasn't live streamed at first. And it's It's something. This is a moment. I'm sorry. I have to take a moment here to take a deep breath because I'm super relieved at not having the pressures that are certainly required to make diamonds. There's no pressure here. So I have to be like, taking a deep breath reluctantly at the fact that there's obviously no real competition here, and I also can just kind of be at ease for a moment. You might hear me vaping. That's what that noise is. The Lion's Den podcast did not actually... I want to talk a little bit about this fucking inception of the show. So the Lion's Den podcast did not actually start live streaming. It was first recorded in the studio where it was recorded on professional audio engineering equipment with using basic and free software. Some of this information on that software was lost in the slag a bit and mentioned before at previous episodes, but like I said, lost in the slag. So a quick refresher is that if you maybe don't have the funds for professional audio engineering equipment, like what I use now, for example, you can get the free stuff. Audacity. Go to audacity.com. It's not available on your phone, mind you. So you need a laptop or something like something like maybe pray to the devil that he will provide you with necessary resources. And get yourself this free program. And that's how the show was began. Began with using this free software, and I had a guest on the show. It wasn't just me talking to myself. I didn't feel right unless I had somebody there with me. So I had a guest on the show, and despite anything, the guy is a Christian, and he had a pretty good, and so was 2 episodes before the last one. So 3 episodes ago, I also had a Christian on my show. It's one of the competitions and personal challenges I like to involve myself in, where maybe I'm at risk of falling off, even though you can't fall off if you're on the ground. It's kind of like a proverb. It's kind of like a Japanese proverb. Very wise, very Eastern mysticism. I also have on the theme song that not only is this show about metal music, metal news from this metal podcast, but it's also got the occasional mythologies known as mythos. So that Christian that I had on the show 3 episodes ago is still fits right in there. And I'm saying this with this sort of emphasis. I know what you might be thinking. I know what you might be wondering, because I know what I'm wondering. That I'm saying this with this kind of emphasis because I get this critique from strangers that I meet personally and physical. You know, there's really a huge gap between the physical world and the digital world today. And when I say that I meet people and meet strangers personally and physically, excuse me, I belched. That the critique that I get is not intended to be personal. It's not intentional. None of that. It's not. There's no need to overthink it. It's not something to help me grow, or whatever I might be thinking. It just literally is what it is, and I kind of dissect and extrapolate these things later. so that I can have the ability to set the framework a little bit for where I'm really actually at with things. Honestly. And that's a very important quality to possess when you're doing these sorts of things for this long. I don't see why the fuck I'd have any incentive at all to create some sort of false reality or some sort of thing that's trending and popular or get in the way at all of anything that any of the generation that currently uses this technology the most would have. But any of that is personal at that point and needs to be handled accordingly. And that's that. So the show, getting back on track here, since I digressed and got distracted a little bit. Getting back on track here. The fucking goddamn motherfucking show with the first guest. And then recording it in the home studio that I was recording some promotional albums at the time. Some free promotional albums. I am a musician. I'm a musician. And I like doing free work. I like making music for free. So quick promo for myself as well. As much as I like doing everything for free, still have to pay for my coffee. Still have to pay for some shaving razors so that I don't have this beard through the winter. As I'm an opposite guy. I'm the opposite guy. Another good way to freaking set the parameters and set the framework of this reintroduction episode is that I'm the opposite guy. I grow beards and long hair in the summer, and I shave my face and have shaved my head bald in the winter. That's just who I am. And I have a name, and so does my dwelling. So let me slowly, gently, carefully coax myself right back into the reintroduction, just in case you forgot or something, or just in case I have to see how I sound later. Maybe when I listen to this later, see how I sound later or something. That my name is Mickey Gemini. This is the Vault of Doom podcast and is being recorded here in the Vault of Doom. It's the Vault of Doom. It's a vault with doom. This has nothing or very little to do with what I like and don't like and what I have done and what I want to do and what I am doing. It's the Vault of Doom. It's a vault that's full of doom. Now, all the other musings and speakings of and ideas of and articulations of and pontifications of stuff is pretty good to continue setting the premise with where is the Vault of Doom? You might think. Well, it's in the United States of America. And that's that. That's that. Enough of that and enough with that. As we seem to be on a certain. I'm picking up what's being laid down around here, and it's my responsibility to do so. In that the vibe is kind of like sort of just basically stay hush hush that you're in the United States of America. That's not my domain. That's not my place to speak on that. That's for conspiracy theorists. That's for whatever other word other than conspiracy theorists that I want to use. But that's for conspiracy theorists, because conspiracy theorists handle that. That's their forte. The forte of mine is evidently it's just too big to digest or even begin to look at. It's like you might as well just stare at the sky all day long if you're gonna fucking be a follower of me. Or something like that. I don't mind, and that's okay. That's okay. You can stare at the sky all day long. I spent a moment recently staring up at the sky and looking at the cool shapes of clouds while listening to a really cool soundtrack. And although it was maybe only like 5 minutes or something, it could have been like an eternity in the fairy realm. You know? That's your calling, to check in on your imagination, see where you're at with stuff. And so the show basically has its history in hosting guests and producing very, very novel and new, fresh, and interesting types of content. All the while doing tutorials on this incarnation of the show, and the tutorials on the previous incarnation were also very popular, like how to roll a blunt, how to roll a joint, how to roll a cross blunt, and I think I even did one on how to roll a bloint, and then even indulged your sensory perceptions and inhaling the cannabis inside of the blunt joint, bloint, cross joint. How-to videos, all separate videos. The fucking, excuse me, pardon my belching and pardon my French. That's the show. I think there's still something that I was leaving behind on the show. I just don't want to miss what it was before I continue onward. And it was no, it's gone. I don't know what it is. I don't know. The talking about the show has got me a little bit rattled. And the kind of thing, the kind of missing link or the missing piece to that puzzle that I'm looking for, I think it has something to do with that the show actually started 13 years ago. Considering, in my mind, I literally think to myself, oh, I've only been doing this 11 years. Well, no, it's actually been 13 years. I've been doing this. I could have given birth to a child at that time, and they'd be 13 years old right now, and on their way to middle school, going through hormones and shit like that. So, fortunately, because I don't have that, I have this. This is my child. This is my child, and so is my music. I have 2 children. And the new and interesting content, along with how-tos and the tutorials, was also like stuff like just singing naked. I would be naked singing stuff. I'm very confident and comfortable in my own skin. I like being naked. Who doesn't? Who the fuck doesn't like being naked? You know, you might be ornery and pissed off, had a long day at work, and you're listening to me and wanting to turn me off. I'm tired of hearing my fucking voice and saying spiteful shit like, who doesn't like being naked or something like that. But it's very important that if you are listening, you couple and pair these things that I'm saying with the context under which I'm providing them. Such as I like being naked, and I sing about witchcraft on my songs. Witches are known for dancing around naked, always been comfortable naked, and it's supposed to be some sort of gift and epiphany to me from unknown, unseen forces that I piece these things together. But it's so ultimately depressing that there's a fucking table being turned here at the same time, that like there's a whole bunch of shit that I've been providing and doing to try to fucking show those same unseen and unknown forces. Call them God, call them Jesus, call them the devil, call them whatever the fuck you want to do, Kernunos, whatever the fuck you want to call them. But I've been dedicating myself and devoting myself to the same force that is going to continue being the only person taking responsibility for continuously showing me epiphany after epiphany and making me feel like I'm performing miracle after miracle or whatever the fuck it is, and just all the while coaxing and tempting fate and dancing with the devil, so to speak, in just many ways, more ways than I can fucking express, more ways than I know how to express. I don't know, but excuse me. The fucking goddamn shit was so much fun starting the show. I swear I want to get on to let's talk about breaks that I've taken. The fucking shit is so much fun. I took some breaks. And I took some breaks from starting in 2011, working through 2012, 2013, or let me go year by year. The show started 2011, working through 2012, and then in that year, making a reality show, filming my daily life in my home with the shenanigans that ensued therein. All this stuff is, mind you, all this stuff is like right now, what this is like literally a documentation of me struggling to focus unnecessarily, where you don't need to focus this hard on anything. You know, unless you're a goddamn heart surgeon or a fucking brain surgeon or a goddamn rocket scientist, honestly. And the reality show, and then the reality show is followed by some depictions available on my Instagram. Some depictions available on my Instagram of basically when I started recording black metal in 2013. You can find those images on my Instagram, and that Instagram account is available on my Linktree. And it's so embarrassing. It's like literally when your parents were cheering you on, and like that's how I feel right now, and I have to acknowledge it, or it'll fucking haunt me all goddamn night and day. And the other stuff being documented there was just the music that was created, and the lyrics that were created, and songs recorded. And don't worry, I know what you're thinking. It's totally up in the air and on the fence on whether I want to resurrect these travesties and then have it be like some kind of excuse me, I belched again. And then have it be some kind of once again, another big extravagant event, as I oft do. So that's it. Conception, reality show, then the studio recordings, followed by more studio recordings the following year. 2013 and 14 are tied together as 2013, 2014 were studio recordings that were all 2013 and 2014 were studio recordings that were all collaborative efforts. They were all collaborative efforts doing studio recording tracks with tens of collaborators that you meet through, you know, whatever you want to consider your source or your higher power. That's what it's going to come down to, man. And the following year, after 2014, of course, it's not a break at all, but it's where the test was given to me. Let me tell you, that was a beautiful disfigurement, so to speak, that the test given to me in 2015 proved to be something that has now shrouded the work I've actually done in 2015 in such a way, through both fault of my own and other people's faults, as I had encountered at that time, again, some more legal issues. And the work that was done there, shrouded as it might be, has been resurrected now, 9 years later, in what is in its own right a big way. That the practicality of what I'm saying is available to you can see it with your eyes, you can print it, have it printed, and tangibly, physically feel it with your fingers, as they are some Alex Gray style drawings. Something that will make people so excited to hear about, that if they hear about it before it is released, it becomes a very big issue in and of itself. But 9 years later, the stuff's finally been released. And now nobody cares except me, acting like I care. I really don't care, honestly. But, hey, acting like I care about my art, my Alex Gray style art, drawn 9 years ago, is something to do for now. And it is a positive thing to say, but I'm going to say it right now. That the work, the aforementioned work, is immortalized through the internet. And it's something else that can be said and added onto that is that the platform it's available on the internet, as well as all the other links attached to it, make it very easily convenient for you to donate and others to donate. If you're listening, scout it out on, it's my DeviantArt profile. And others, if they just find it by happenstance, They can also donate cash money in my Cash App, or it's called Cash App. Sends money through it and produces cash money, and then so the immortalizing it through the internet's not enough, but making it available to where the thing that I'm speaking on can generate income. It can generate revenue. It's possible. It just isn't right now. So it's a bit of a problem, but I wouldn't refer to it much as a problem as much as it is a simple case of just sheer ignoring whatever it is that I need to do to make that a possibility. At least as far as I can tell, that's how I handle things. And it's another detail I wanted to add in too is that it's really cool that the money that's sent to my Cash App can be I'll actually receive the cash. I can actually go spend the cash right away. Like if you send me money for any of my work, I can go buy a pack of smokes immediately. Smoke those smokes and fucking enjoy them, and smokes. I wouldn't buy smokes most likely, but you know, every once in a while I gotta indulge in a pack of smokes. You know, I gotta get a pack of smokes, and when I do, I gotta set them down gingerly and then freaking and enjoy it, hunkering down and scooting on, scooting on, doop, scooting boogie and all that jazz. All right, anyway. The other fucking shit that happened after that too, with the legal problems and then the work that I did that got me a little excited there, is another work that eventually got lost, but I started an adventure that occurred after that, and I filled a thick notebook, college ruled, full of all the events. And then I'm still picking the pieces up and putting them back together from that one adventure, when countless other adventures occurred after that I can't possibly be that worried about one of them at all, ever, under any circumstance. If I know what's good for me, I won't focus on any one of those adventures, as that thing literally catapulted a domino effect after that all the adventures that happened afterwards just had a literal domino effect of all the other adventures that happened afterwards being completely incapable of recording and keeping chronicle and documenting properly all these adventures. And now at this point, what I have become is somebody who appears to be some kind of bum-ass, strung-out drug addict that just pounces around and scrounces around and tounces around town to town, when it's a bunch of fucking bullshit. But it certainly does keep me from having to acknowledge that I'm neglecting a shitload of fucking responsibilities in the process of living a pretty carefree, enjoyable lifestyle. And unfortunately, for whatever part of me is too worried about that, it's actually concluded. Like, all the pieces have been picked up, put together. All has been made right with these scenarios, essentially. The scar remains, but I've already written and published the fucking song for Scar That Remains, and I've already made it so that you can only access that through having the link to that content. So any old average Joe can't even access that information. And it's also not my mentality to be such an optimist. I'm definitely much more of an I need to be a pessimist when I need to be a pessimist, and I need to be an optimist when I need to be an optimist, and I need to be saying fuck you to Hollywood and the film industry if they have any hand in any of my day-to-day issues. Since I don't give a flying fuck about movies, I hate movies, and I don't even fucking watch movies. And in case I want to continue testing myself as well, the test has been failed by having a little bit of an outburst on this episode. I will say this. consequences can and will be suppressed from me acknowledging that for a little while. But I barely even listen to anybody else's fucking music either. The same would go for podcasts, but I can only consume so many podcasts. There's really one of them that comes out with one new podcast it took the guy 3 months to put out his new one. One of the podcasts I listened to had a new podcast that came out, and that was the first one in 3 months. The other one is a monthly. The other one is just a pleasant surprise to have. And then the other one, other than that, requires a little time for me to pick through and sift through what I actually want to listen to that he puts out there. So other than that, I'm totally open to exploring new podcasts. I just can't fucking stand the mainstream of podcasts. It's not even worth mentioning. It's literally best if I don't mention it, or at least not indulge in it, but I will mention that the mainstream of podcasts is pure garbage. And I seriously am begging myself to just check out another homebody podcast where some guy is a homebody and he sits at home all day and talks to himself on a fucking microphone and publishes the shit. Like, I'll give that guy a shot for like one time, and then, hey, if I like it, that'll be cool. If it strikes a chord with me, hey, that'll be cool. It'd be definitely way better than fucking listening to this bullshit of mainstream podcasts. And then after that, there's a difficulty in kind of articulating the events, but I've already come to my senses a long time ago, as I've passed the age of 32 years ago, and now I have pretty good sense of what is meant to be and important to be mentioning and kept track of after that. You know, that sort of Elizabeth Salander, girl with the dragon tattoo, after all the evil happened style moment. That's a big pause too. That's a big pause after saying that. I don't want to leave you that long in the silence, but I just did, unfortunately. So me publishing an introduction of the reintroduction in 2 separate episodes would be a realistic thing if I didn't want a 2 or 3 hour one go at it style format for this episode, but I want a 2 or 3 hour one go at it style format for this episode. So that's the way it's gonna be, unfortunately. You know, I'd like to have a monarchy or king and queen to kind of like, you know, respect and honor and follow their rules and stuff, but unfortunately I live in a democracy where everybody just fucking runs around like maniacs. Fucking, you know, being hair trigger anger style with every fucking thing over here, or I don't know, because I've recently decided actually to pick up the news and start catching up on my news. It's just an extremely, it's not treading deep water, it's not treading hot water, it's literally trying to nosedive into shallow water. If you take my meaning. The blasting. I'm sorry. Excuse me. I have absolutely no fucking idea where I was going with that. Let me back up a little bit. So after all the evil happened, it's all extravagant after that. It's all inescapably, unavoidably in the limelight. And that's where I am right now. Still there. Stuck in the limelight. Able to step out of the light right now, just not really able to appreciate when I do, unfortunately. It's more of a you need to have like it's more of a I need to have the darkness and I need to have the stepping out of the light now, and sort of rationed with it, and it's become some sort of like a therapeutic event to do so, and this show, I mean, I gotta be totally honest with you guys, if you're still with me. I don't appreciate the show. I don't appreciate the ability that I have to speak freely and all that, considering so much controversy surrounding the spoils of all the evil happened. When all the evil happened, where all the evil happened, how all the evil happened. It's not realistic for me to say to myself that it's unavoidable that I'm gonna have to broadcast that in some way. So doing this episode about the reintroduction is a good way to sort of plant the seeds for doing it properly before essentially it gets worse. It's gonna get worse, that's for sure. I know that much. But doing this is a way of kind of feeding a part of me that can at least try to do it properly before resorting to other things to effectively and accurately broadcast this all the evil happened thing or event in my life. Now I worry at times about people saying things like, you're lying, you're not telling the truth, or you're full of shit, man, or something like that. But I really could care less if you think I'm lying. It's more of a matter of, when I'm ready and when I want to, and when the time is right, and when the planets align, rewrite the stuff physically onto a notebook. Provide that, so it's provided in writing. Film a bit of digestible length film, so it's provided through that, and then watch all the other kind of sort of karma that I've created, and the consequences of that karma as a result, before relentlessly surrendering whatever's left to my other child, my music, the music that I make, as my other child, and it kind of goes into that. The right way, this is the wrong way totally to do it. The right way to do it is actually just surrender it all right now, completely to these things, and then fucking be done with it. But I've been inconvenienced. It's going to be clearly stated and clearly defined right here. After all the evil happened, I've been inconvenienced far, far too much for there not to be some sort of punishment delivered personally by me. And all that punishment is setting up basically a template essentially, for just kind of future people that could be at risk of having the same thing happen to them, as it's obvious. Now let's go down to the promotions here. My black metal project, Pitiful Spawn, is fucking just released an album today, bitches. Bitch ass motherfuckers, go and check this shit the fuck out if you have some cool party to go to or something like that. It features tracks. It's called Mountains Have a Grudge. It features tracks such as Goblin Opium Den, where I literally am dumbfounded to this day by my musical genius and my musical talent. Does it sound like does that make sense, or am I patronizing myself a little bit here? I'm definitely patronizing myself a little bit here. Let me correct myself on that. There's only one way to correct somebody patronizing you, and it's communication. But that's all. That's all there is for promo, and that's all the time I have for promo. And I don't know. Check it out. It's in the comments. Drop your feedback. Let me know what you think. Yeah. All right. Sorry if I freaked you out a little bit with that fucking freaky ass voice of mine. That's certainly. I just consider that unacceptable. I've been on an unacceptable trip lately where everything's unacceptable. Everything's just simply unacceptable for some reason. I don't know what it is. Excuse me. And as for the other stuff that there is in terms of year by year after that, well, it's kind of the same scenario that I'm hyper aware of, where my ability to document, communicate a chronicle and list of events or depiction of these events after all the evil happened was suppressed. That's why it was all the evil. Is being suppressed right now. And in every single moment, parts of me are dying from those things that you never said that haunt you to the grave sort of scenario. Sometimes, though, in some moments in my life, I do realize how fortunate I am. There's just quite an extravagantly unfortunate feeling that follows afterwards, where it's really clearly defined as, it's not grateful, it's not gratitude. It's clearly defined as giving way to astonishment, and that's a sure sign of death of the undead and dying while you're alive, and a symptom of a symptom of basically being one of those types of guys, one of those types of people. And there's not really much else aside from the fucking ability to kind of really do whatever it is right now. Like in my style, it's right now, that's the podcast right now, and then couple hours or a little bit later. It's hop in the studio, hop in the beat laboratory, and start cooking up some beats. And then, this kind of paranoia that we have in this country of clinging on to that sort of freedom is a you're not wrong scenario. And then after a certain amount of time, it's okay, let's figure out a different way to communicate with each other so I don't have to play Agent Smith and basically cast you into exile. Basically leave you for dead. As there certainly are unavoidable consequences for such things as that. I mean, you don't have to defend that at all. There's no effort required to defend the judgments that come upon people who would do such things. And there's no amount of things physically at all that can replace people and relationships and your heart and all that other stuff. And there's also no amount of interest, intrigue, or incentive, or any of that stuff to go and dabble and indulge too far into these topics, as this is simply a metal show. This is just a show about metal music. And I'm keenly aware of my propensity to digress on these things. I'm keenly aware of unknown and unseen forces that are aware of my propensity to indulge and digress on these, detour on these topics. So I'm gonna clearly state it right now, kind of keep it very concise. If there's something you want to communicate to me, don't ignore me, don't watch my videos like you have been and not say anything, or watch my videos and then click like. Just keep it concise. 500 emojis with no words attached to them is going to prove to be far more effective than my videos having hundreds of views and a few likes here and there and no comments. Other than, of course, the comments that I get that seem to only exist in the domain of some sort of egotism, where like you're not saying anything about the music, or you're not saying anything about the content, and I'm simply just doing things my way. So I understand the paranoia through and through, and it's well known that I'm not going to be the guy that'll, at least not consciously, or at least runs very little risk of being the guy that will leave you for dead after you don't, who knows what, I don't know, because I'll never understand. But these things unfortunately have had me shrouded in fear, just like anybody else. But I do play a very strong, bold, and courageous young fellow. And likewise, I don't have any need to cling on to that as much either. So it's pretty easily predictable now that any of the stuff that happens is going to have just a ripped bag that everything spills out and opens up and falls all over the place now whenever I get in my head and dig in and sink my teeth into anything at all. But that's a good planting of seeds and tilling soil, at least. Maybe not planting the seeds, but tilling the soil of a future episode where I can talk more about black metal music. Now, what you guys are doing is on the, monitor of my mind of what I see on my feed and what I basically jot down in my notes and my day-to-day errands and stuff on my way to go do laundry or go shopping for food or hygiene products or something. I live off grid, but if I need something, I can always venture off into go run an errand. But it's a 10 to 12 hour ordeal to go do for laundry day. To go do laundry is a 10 or 12 hour ordeal. To go grocery shopping is an 8 to 10 hour ordeal. I'm off grid. Don't need to go too much further into that. The music takes care of the rest of it. The music that I create handles the rest of that. The other paranoia that might occur is just, again, it's another thing for skeptics and conspiracy theorists that they handle that as well, like I was saying. And I'm not a skeptic or conspiracy theorist, but dabbling in politics and dabbling in conspiracy theories is acceptable. I have broken the "this is unacceptable" spell by saying acceptable. No, that the fucking third introduction of the reintroduction of the episode. Let's do a couple more promos, as I have other content that's been released today other than the album, and that is some tutorials. I did a podcast review with 3 parts, 1 minute each, on my official Mickey Gemini YouTube channel. The album's on Pitiful Spawn. The movie, I must remind you of, on Lion's Den Productions YouTube channel, has 8 parts to it. It's quite a lengthy one. It's not a short film, but it did begin as a short film, and it is not a short film. It's a very long film. It's 8 parts to it. You can't even watch the first part of it and finish the short film version of the show. You have to watch. They all blend in and mold in together now. And the other thing that I'm really excited about is I was scrolling through and looking through my my YouTube version of the show and saw that the whole second season was missing. So I have done my part in fixing that by making a short 15-minute segment that contains all of the Spotify stories. Stories, I don't know if it's the right word, but it's like your Facebook story, your Instagram story, and then your Spotify story. I don't know what Spotify calls it, but it's those short 1-minute segments where I have the complete second season in 15 minutes of the combination of all the shorts. So I talked very little about the music that I make. I've talked a lot about my history, and now I am wrapping up right away. I'm wrapping up talking about the show as you're listening to the show. So why would you want to listen to me talk about my show on the show? But that second season is not missing from the YouTube channel anymore. You go check it out. All the other stuff that's on my official Mickey Gemini channel is not anything other than just a bunch of random shit that you probably won't be seeing a lot of, other than these specific ones. Guitar hacks having finger exercises that you can, these are some very essential takeaways for aspiring guitarists in the extreme metal genre. I don't have information for you if you don't make extreme metal. At least in a not for sale to minors, must be 21 and older type of way. You know, of course there's something there for you. You're just not allowed there. And I said it. I said it myself. So anyway, the fucking goddamn, I think I lost my train of thought. I shouldn't raise my voice. Something about raising my voice has screwed me up. And now and now I have to recollect and recollect. Especially considering the dark cloud hanging over my ominous dark cloud hanging over my head right now is a bunch of fucking bullshit that I can't stand and is completely useless to me. Essentially, about synopsis and syntax. It's a very concise way of describing it. It's called syntax and it's called synopsis. And the syntax and the synopsis about the fundamental and essential way that the hypothalamus and the hypothalamus and hippocampus process these phenomena in the human brain is like literally shit that's for fucking brain surgeons, brain psychology teachers, psychoanalysts, and all this shit. And I had an interest in being a psychoanalyst or a psychologist or a therapist at one point in time, before I had to fucking, you know, wake up and say that, like, something along the lines of, like, 12 years later that I finally said this, or repeated this rather. I have already said this, but repeating this 12 years later has me just flustered, absolutely flabbergasted. Anywho, let's get back on track, shall we? The fucking things that I've talked about so far, this is for my own mental processing, and I'm gonna be such a cunt, I'm gonna broadcast it because I don't have the fucking ability to sit around editing this much shit. Even AI does not have the fucking ability to process all this shit unless I have some kind of fucking imaginary Neverland Ranch bullshit in my fucking head over here and how shit works out. Because, you know, you have to get to that point through, like, you have to get to that point and then talk about it. But, you know, for me talking about it before I either get to that point or get back to that point, it literally leaves me very confused. It leaves you, the listener, very confused, and I'm surrounded by trees, and I'm even, they're just trees, and I'm even confusing the fucking trees over here. So, you know, the point here being, just a recap here, we talked a lot about my history, talked a lot about the history of the show, talked very little about the history or about my music, and I've added in some variety for spice and flavor. Well, now that ominous dark cloud of syntax and various other completely irrelevant things floating through my fucking head right now have dissipated as much as they can before I will, has dissipated as much as it has before I have drawn the line, gone as far as I will, waited as long as I will wait, and must go and continue and press on and press forward. The following segment here contains some words that I have written earlier today. Hello. My name is Mickey. I'm an American black metal musician, host of the metal podcast Vault of Doom podcast, and creator of Lion's Den Productions. I started making black metal without recording it, and recording content like horror movies and literally death-defying stunts since age 11. Some of this was subtly mentioned in my recent film titled Voyage, but simply was shrouded with intellectual and philosophical essays as I attempted to keep up with my articulate thoughts for the previous decade before this recording. Raised Catholic, which may have had its hand in the naturally singing black metal, wailing screams, spray painting inverted pentagrams, carving my favorite band's name into my arm with a friend, tattooing myself in rehab, carving I hate my mom, I hate my dad into my furniture, while carving the curb with my Zero skateboard with school sucks printed on it, giving each other buddy burns and our first tattoos with friends I was skipping school with, until becoming a ward of the state after dating girls who carved my name into their arm, and always almost burning down my own church while waiting in the bushes, laughing for years to come at the sight of the fire department scrambling to put out the fire. Still funny to this day, just like having no ability to control the fact that I'm imagining I'm running down the halls naked while I'm in church, and entering a church recently, and by recently I mean 5 years ago, and literally hearing angels. I can hear the angels screaming at high pitch, like I'm burning and killing the angels. That's where it's funny, and then it's kind of awe-inspiring. It's funny, and then it's awe-inspiring. That's quite enough of that. I won't shape-shift my broadcasting platform into a confession booth. It's just for my sake to reflect upon, even if it's just for myself. So as I easily take the things in stride, considering even all that was simply a taste of sin, keeping my craving more. It is my best life, after all. None of this really serves as a proper introduction until I speak on what I do today. Episode 35 is called Extreme Things, for the extreme metal and extreme sports I currently am involved in. An entire lifetime of being unnoticed leads me to do things like this, where I am honestly working way too hard on literally everything putting out the amount of content I create is extreme. Haven't even mentioned the living situations here yet, but those are also documented and on this channel and on one of my channels and unnoticed. There's hundreds of views and no comments. And I'm looking into this right now. As in, I don't know who my audio even is. Who my audience even is. This was mentioned in a recently recognized video I haven't even uploaded yet, or hadn't before writing this. I have uploaded it now. As of the writing of the script for this episode, and even after it has to go through the proverbial snail mail avenues before anyone will even comment. I might have to translate along the way, as I clearly don't know how to prepare something and read it. That's just saying, like, by the time I actually get any feedback, it'll be like snail mail style, or I'd be better off just writing a letter to the president and something like that. Oh wait, I already have actually written a letter to the president and sent it out. Call you what you will. Call this what you will, but this broadcasting platform has become the only real way for me to communicate, as the music I make requires its live physical presence now, and routine live streaming at this point. Whereas at first I had a heavy, also over industrious, physical presence, doing covers while my lyrics and concepts were gestating. That has been reduced to non-existent now, while the online presence took its place as I rear the child of said concepts and wonder to myself why anyone would ever even want anything different than this. I'm deep in everything I do, always have been. Never cared for the confines of security and indulging in the dangerous value. In indulging in the dangerous, I value its isolated spaces. Everywhere, few ever go near. Create friction when in crowds, and wonder why there's never any proper documentation or representation once I've gone that distance. One could say this episode's context, like most things in general, spawned from the problem I just mentioned. But let's dive a little deeper in here together now, shall we? As this is a reintroduction, I've curated a few concepts, took the liberty of putting them together, and through all the real challenges are over, and though the real challenges are over after that part of the process, the metaphorical documentary won't have a chance of conception. If the journalist's footage doesn't make it out of, this is going to be a metaphor, doesn't make it out of Baghdad through satellite. This isn't a documentary, but it is one of sorts. I'm not a journalist, but I am a journalist, and this isn't Baghdad, but clearly the difficulty I and others like me have at speaking out on these things proves that this place is just as dangerous as Baghdad. One must tread very lightly to get a simple task completed successfully. Without boring you, if you've chosen to stick with me this far in the show, my journey is making content, and even simply through this episode, advertising, sponsors, and in my case, self-promoting, being all that I have the desire left for, will certainly serve as an excellent, elevator into the next segment of the cringe episode of this evidently lame and unsuccessful show that I proudly call my creation. So here it is. As I sit in the early morning watching the sunrise, writing this after a hot cup of coffee, sacrificing writing more poetry amidst an AI total takeover, I'm hyper aware of the hazards of doing what I do and thriving on the thrill of it in lieu of redirecting myself and coaxing myself back to what I used to do. The activities mentioned in the beginning of the episode. Understandably so, considering the risks involved. It's clearly evident momentum of screw things up so it's whatever when it gets cleared up. A success story, a comeback story, I'm told, is an American obsession, along with superheroes and everything else I'm told that America possesses is an exclusive quality. Though I'm not a skeptic or conspiracy theorist, those values are always and always have been readily accessible in my arsenal. Anything else that's required to combat whatever it is plaguing me next, however, I won't add into my repertoire, as I have chosen to be an exceptional black metal musician over all these other things, and always have been exceptional in everything I do. To go from here and realizing that I have to process that last bit is a bit of a struggle. But realizing that I have to process that last bit and those details are what come with me to the grave. Process this like this. Momentum of needing a success story, reaching a point where the previous version of how I get my kicks draws to a close, and evolving is addiction. It's demons, it's attachments, even needing to do this much, taking on some very advanced subjects, broadcasting to an audience of I have no fucking clue, is one of these issues. At any rate, all things considered, and whatever else may be before the following statement, this is a cut and dry version of Caught Red-Handed. All problems, obstacles, and inconveniences that followed every single monumental event in my life ever since I can remember have lost any and all of its authentic appearances. Look literally like someone gutting me out and scattering my entrails on a landfill, and those responsible who have chosen to hide, snake, weasel around have already done what they've done. They've sealed their fate. Moving forward, these themes, the content I make, and as the specific event of systematic enslavement bleeds into my very core of being, the very fabric of my mind, all have appeared to arrive at the same destination: surrender, revenge, documentation, moving on. Those 5 words are the mechanics of warfare. I wrote the lyrics to songs just fine. Now, I am a one-man black metal band. I'm fucking one-man black metal and nothing else. Just as I spent all the time experiencing the events listed here, spent the time thinking day and night, losing sleep over it, spent the time writing it, and a fraction of any of that realizing I don't, and no one does actually have that kind of time. I will take the bold move of writing the first few paragraphs, letting this thing write itself, and once it cools down enough, spend more time proofreading before taking more time to see how much time I want to take as a break before putting the words I've written into recording and finally publishing. I didn't actually broadcast it that way. I wrote it down that way, but I actually proofread while I'm going along, as I go along. And then what would have been a huge gap of nothingness now has something there fundamentally I'm aware of and realize that now there has to be something there. Just as I said that before, the American success story, selling dreams, bullshit, fucking suck my fucking dick, goddammit, fuck this shit, black metal fodder. It'll be an entire new set of events as psychoanalyze, overanalyze, and waste time on. Time I didn't have, yet time I'd rather spend getting fucked up with friends. The indulgement into articulation has become my new party, as has making one-man black metal. And being one-man black metal. I'm not a podcaster, or writer, or any of this bullshit. I make fucking one-man black metal. Anyone else tells me different, I tell them they can go fuck themselves. Mountains Have a Grudge, the new EP from Pitiful Spawn, available today on the Pitiful Spawn YouTube channel. Go check it out. It's got vibes and tastes of dungeon synth and atmospheric black metal. Let's get back to the show. As I took a large amount of time cooling down after this previous segment, the good stuff can begin to ensue. Happy face emoji. My history is not all bad, it simply is all bad when you learn the following good stuff. My DeviantArt profile vaguely mentioned in episode whatever, containing new and old sketches to the degree of psychedelic drug use and whatever other credibility stripped from it for that very reason, and that very reason alone. Even as I'm writing this, I can clearly see that I do not know how to speak articulately while attempting to speak articulately. However, the online art exhibit provides the musings mentioned in the episode mentioned. Here's so I can see the Russian doll of mentioning something that was mentioned. The same way that someone who thinks all day has nothing to think about but thoughts or things inside of another thing, inside of another thing, inside of another thing. Spiel. My history is not all bad. It simply is all bad when you move the following good stuff. And these problems are a certain level of a problem. Until I realize my own ability to really understand and realize these things, which is a conclusion that willing to have arrived at simply until after the thing is complete. Let's get back to the art exhibit. It contains the following themes. Extraterrestrials, Godhead symmetry, geometric patterns, as well as asymmetry. Things that make me question more than anyone genuinely cares to. More than anybody cares to question further, or has the capability of handling taking on that kind of pursuit. The other day, is it yesterday? Actually, it's the day before yesterday, or something like that. And mentioning of idolatry from a scholar and theologian was meant by saying something about putting the weight of a larger thing onto a smaller thing. Blew my mind. That's how I mentioned it, because now as I mention it, I realize the traps all around me, and even just dipping my toes in the water, my own synopsis, the realization and articulation proving to me that what I'm dealing with is clearly ego game. So booking and running as fast as possible, as fast as you possibly can, and as far away as you possibly can from finding myself in a game that simply does not suit me. It does not suit me at all. It does not suit me well. I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them on a Sam I Am. I do not like them on a boat. I do not like them on a smoke. I do not like them on a cold. I do not like green eggs and ham. Point being that the art exhibit was another endeavor, simply falling by the wayside. Even as writers, I'm writing this. I'm literally living in a tent outside by the wayside. I can hear interstate traffic glaring through my ears at all times. Blaring, not glaring. The art exhibit is huge space to work with. However, it's not nearly as easy for other people to clearly identify, as easy as it is for me to do so, that such an abundance of failed endeavors amounts to me to a song. One song. The song called Map of Tarnished Ambition. How that is communicated through other people, how their feedback doesn't reach me at all, simply due to the fact that I obviously have it all figured out, leads me to arrive to this final conclusion of my enemy of this is this. My enemy of that is that. Simply put, I still have a certain amount of time, basically just to run for my life. But again, as I write this, I'm living in a tent outside right next to an interstate highway. That's the next portion of this episode that I would like to get to. Let's talk about while I live that way. How completely ridiculous that I look. How literally couldn't even begin to start thinking about caring about how my life would be any different. And finally, how despite effective communication, or at least as effectively communicating as much as I can on my part, nothing seems to be changing at all. This form of communication and broadcasting the truth of what is transpiring here is my minimalist step of upping my guns and beefing up my arsenal before I have to proceed into more extreme endeavors of insignificant inconveniences. Watch the new film, avant-garde indie film Voyage, starring Mickey Gemini, featuring Mickey, created by Mickey Gemini, and starring Mickey Gemini, and Mickey Gemini is the only person involved in the entire fucking thing. Let's get back to the show. I realize this is an introduction, and the extensive length of it makes it a bit funny. Yet, although I care about reintroducing myself to an unknown, mysterious audience, I also care about having something to look back on later, reflecting on who I once was. Also, a bit comedic as that can appear how this is. But I'm sure it's not. I hate comedy as much as any other black metal musician. Quick recap. Troubled youth led me to more of an accurate lifestyle that was explicitly suggested by my family, and now I've gone and lost my mind to a certain degree as I clearly am broadcasting to a vacuum, with loads of too much pressure constantly held onto this one thing, then the next one thing, and the next, and the next. Learning from my mistakes could be a whole podcast in its own if this was something I wasn't already processing, along with some of the trauma and brain damage. Quick recap attempt number 2. Always dreamt of achieving highest of heights, becoming a professional skateboarder and putting in the time to do so, with no support from my family, the people I spent the most time with. Now I'm putting in the most time broadcasting from the woods, sourcing power from the local library, restaurants, and industrial areas that will feel it the least from me commandeering some of their electricity. Putting in all this time and keenly aware of the only support on these endeavors is from my family, and watching all my time and effort go right down the drain. An easily predictable and common motif in the mid-pandemic world of 2024 on planet Earth, United States of America. I'll unravel the head-spinning folly behind that easily digestible golden nugget later. Don't call me, I'll call you sort of thing, leaving me to draw no other conclusions than my own family being the only audience I've ever had. Quite literally, in every sense of those words. No riddles, no jokes, no unease, just a pure and simple, my body and imagination and what was conducted to enshroud me in such an extremely enslaving scenario has now become a man aware of what is, acknowledging it in this way, through this transmission, and moving on while keeping this platform. It has its own challenges to face, and its own guidelines. And once again, I'm more than willing to do what must be done, provided that proper and effective communication ensues therein and prevails. Without this, I am doomed to become something not in my blood. I am a McDermott, and the name means son of Diarmuid, an ancient Irish king. Currently, all I can see I'm doing effectively is giving the people who already know through word of mouth my story, through casting my pearls before swine, or having spoken into the darkness for too long, broadcasting to a vacuum. The courage to continue pursuing this endeavor as well. As satisfying as that may be, it's again another hero story, doomed to prevail in a dark, dismal mental space, while my heart foolishly yearns for a geographical dark and dismal space, while I make extremely disturbing music, all the while neutralizing its dreary drag and being goaded by those who know me. I'm not surprised by anything anymore. It's a dead end. There's no processing it, there's no waiting on some catalyst, and there's no real vices substantially affecting my life. That message alone, broadcasting from the United States, is very bad for business in a country with the leading pharmaceutical industry in the world. Those who think I'm politically unaware should engage in conversation with me more often, along with the others who have intentions completely confused with that of a Charlie Manson type figure. And I'm not a holy man either, as well as not having a strong need or desire to become someone who needs the record set straight. Stepping into the writing of this, proofreading of this, recording what I've proofread, properly uploading and publishing this, sets the bar for a completion of what once was entirely a huge mess to be cleared up, and cleared up into what my vision of the show actually is. This is an exercise I simply don't have any idea what it could possibly be, exercising aside from the way it feels, exclusively slated in my music, combating whatever forces, mysterious and dangerous or otherwise, that had a potential, that lead a potential audience away from me for having divulged such details. I am a songwriter. I do write lyrics. I have been complimented on this, and I do not call this skill. Mine, or one of my possessions. It's a lucrative mindset for successful musicians, and I don't have a mind to think of others. Wrapping up here, back to some solid facts for you. I wrote a book in 2013. It was called The Gemini Genesis, the merging of science and spirituality. Showed it to my family, got no honesty, and nothing I could remember. Just went kaput, and I didn't try it again until writing The Power of Silence a few years later, about just what the title states. Also, showed it to a few friends here and there and got no play, so it went bye-bye. Let me put this writing into perspective with these writings by saying, I earn no income from this, or anything I do, and yet I continue on, and that is something I can make almost certain of, that I will continue at all costs, with no regard to future, instead of the current one, is that I have no feedback or funds from this work. Back to the books. Showing myself I could channel this was great, but it was enslaved me. As now a recent Twitter and X post from Elon Musk states, the division between technology, and I'm paraphrasing here, and anything that can be considered magical practice is almost indistinguishable. That was it seems like I just left the whole thing blank after that. We'll also get to how I'm dead later. The power of silence I have to articulate without research, but the power of silence, the book I wrote, I have to articulate it without research. But Disturbed covered a song sounding familiar, and Be Here Now Network, Raghu, Marcus, and Ramdas expresses this point often as well. This is supposed to freak people out. It doesn't perturb me.
I don't see the use in having such skill, as I have a history of being an independent creative, while the U.S. government has a history of being untrusted by its own people. What conclusion am I to ultimately draw from this? Answer is never arrived at with the first opportunity to do so. What I do best, appearing in the middle of processing the question. Well, I don't even have the doubt in my mind at this point. It won't work out, and I'll be right back again. A pejorative term should be inserted here, and that is what goes back to American hero worship, but it boils down to needing a real diagnosis and defining something clearly in the midst of a riddle and concerta fountain that anyone can lie here and it is rewarded and rewarding. The biblical times are upon us, and I teeter and totter the tightrope, making black metal music, battling my demons every day and brushing it off like it's nothing after victory. I battle and require a battle and requirement in and of itself to perform it in that way. Yet the amount of victories I've taken part in have led the other entity with its own history to invite itself into the question. A third party that, although no one gives a fuck about, and some give way too much of a fuck about. Is there another word from the sponsors that all the shorts that I've been making have some cool tutorials. Go check them out. The official Mickey Gemini. Two's company and three's a crowd, but clearing up some more confusing and insurmountable and virtually non-existent time, energy, effort, and imagination is fairly doable upon a "you must unlearn what you have learned" tactic. Yoda is the man. And despite all that I've said so far, it will be a tricky scenario to discern what to make of the fact that I'm simply not going to do this anymore, and people simply are not going to stop seeking me out to be this kind of person. I am not your savior. All that said, this was a great reintroduction, and despite what the Gen Z mentality, as much as it's bled into some of us older folks might think, this was literally just a few moments of time, well worth every minute of it, so fuck you, and fuck everyone, and that made it have to come down to such an inconvenience. I am Mickey Gemini. I have been podcasting since 2011, making and writing music since 2007/2008. I've written a few books. That's it. I'm fucking out of here. Alright. Check out the fucking new shit out, motherfuckers. And shut up and metal. Oh, actually, I'm not done yet. So the machine collecting data is a third party, and you have to tell it to do stuff and not to give permission to collect your data. Not my arena, not my game, though it affects me, not my forte. I do not give permission to present that kind of ultimatum. And I just uploaded a short about, how many fucking apps you have to go through and sit there all fucking day long and tell each one of these apps that you do not allow the fucking permission to collect the data, even though your phone's in airplane mode. Not to be confused with the fucking short that I put up there about keeping your phone in airplane mode is going to protect you from this. So that'll be attached in the description. As long as you read the description to staying in airplane mode, you'll be fine. And especially if you listen to what I actually said about the staying in airplane mode, you'll also be fine. Been an adventurer my whole life. Wasn't raised in a family that ever explicitly accepted me for who I am, causing a lifetime of toil. But now that I have not only been free of all this for quite some time now, and have just clearly stated all of this right here and right now, moving on, with me being the same person that I am, the same person that I always have been, the same person, and I always will be, there isn't even a single fragment of anything positive I could possibly have to say, provide, and have chosen the absolute ways that make the most sense to me, or how to proceed forward, and which literally might result in something along the lines of walking from the American Midwest to the Atlantic Ocean before diving straight in, just swimming away from this terrible ego game that the USA has going on, and through word of mouth and the fairies again, people who know that I'm not lying. That's it. That's a show, guys. So let me wrap up properly here. The fucking insanity that this episode was. Whoa. raising the bar. Talk about raising the bar, stretching standards and other ways and sentiments that I feel. Well, that's anyway. That's it. I gotta go. Bye.